Hello and welcome to Mindprint Learning. In this video, we're going to cover a basic framework for reading a student learner profile. There's a wealth of information and suggestions embedded in each student learner profile, but you don't have to be a cognitive scientist or learning specialist to put it all to use. Most of the information is designed to be practical and immediately useful, but backed by the objective data we've collected during the assessment. There are really three primary takeaways from each report. The first question is, what are the student's strengths? How does the student learn best? What skills should the student lean on whenever the student is learning new information or facing challenges in school? The goal is to make sure that each student knows his or her strengths and understands how to use them across all subjects. The second question is, what might get in the way? What are the things that might prevent learning from occurring? Which leads to the third and most important takeaway, what to do about it. What are the specific strategies the student can use to ensure that weaker skills don't prevent students from achieving their academic goals? On the student learner profile, the student skills are grouped by domain. The three domains are complex reasoning, long-term memory, and executive functions, along with processing speed. You'll see that one group is larger than the other two. This represents the student's strongest domain. Within each domain, skills are listed in order of strength, with the stronger skills listed on top and the weaker ones at the bottom. Start with the complex reasoning skills. These describe a student's ability to make sense of new information. They can loosely be divided into verbal and nonverbal skills. Focus on the top skill, the student's strength. If the top skill is verbal reasoning, this student has an easier time making sense of information that comes in the form of words, either written or spoken. School is an inherently verbal place. This is why, of all the skills that we track, verbal reasoning has the strongest correlation to performance in school across all subjects, even math and science. Teach your students with stronger verbal reasoning to get in the habit of articulating or talking through everything to make sense of it. Abstract reasoning, called visual reasoning on the student learner profile, describes students' ability to make sense of new information they encounter that is not in the form of words. This could include numbers, symbols or shapes, patterns, or abstract concepts. It helps students analyze novel problems and identify patterns and principles. If this is the student's stronger skill, help that student learn ways to visualize information. These students will have an easier time following patterns and logic, even when there are no words to explain it. Spatial reasoning, called spatial perception on the student learner profile, describes students' ability to make sense of new information in three-dimensional space, including orientation, scale, and the relationship between objects. This comes into play when interpreting a map or a chart, fitting writing or images onto a page, or navigating through screens on a computer. Teach students with stronger spatial reasoning to make and use three-dimensional models or diagrams when learning new material. Use a more visual approach for students with stronger nonverbal skills. They should try to develop pictures of ideas or concepts to make sense of them. For more specific strategies, go to the second page of the student learner profile. Next up is memory. This comes in two flavors, verbal and nonverbal. Some of us are lefties, some are righties, and some of us have stronger verbal memory, while others have stronger visual memory. Memory, or retention, is separate from reasoning. A person can be better off using words for reasoning, but pictures for retention. And a student can have strong reasoning skills, but weak memory. Students with stronger verbal memory should use words to retain things, such as this strategy here. Whereas students with stronger visual memories should use pictures, colors, diagrams, or other nonverbal mnemonics. You always want students to rely on their stronger memory skill when they've got a lot to memorize. You'll find strategies to do this here and on the second page of the student learner profile. Next are the executive functions. These include attention, flexible thinking, and working memory. We also include speed here because speed, like executive functions, affects how efficiently students work. The executive functions are often the ones that are getting in the way of learning, so you'll usually focus on the weaker ones here as they tend to be the blockers. Flexible thinking describes students' ability to adapt to new situations, to take and apply feedback, or to self-correct. Students with weak flexible thinking aren't just being stubborn or ignoring you. They've got a genuinely hard time doing things in a new way, especially under pressure. Help them to recognize when they're stuck and give them strategies to get themselves unstuck. Working memory, called short-term memory on the student learner profile, is the ability to hold information long enough to use it to complete a task. You're using working memory when you have to remember someone's name 3 minutes into the conversation. You'll see it in action when students need to follow multi-step directions, do mental math, answer questions at the end of a long passage, or keep track of an argument while writing an essay. When students have weaker working memory, give them strategies to park information and make it accessible. Work to turn these strategies into habits. Attention describes a student's ability to maintain focus for at least 20 minutes, specifically on a task that they don't like or one that just isn't important to them. One way to support weaker attention, therefore, is to find ways to make things interesting for the student. If you can connect the student or the task to an area of genuine interest, the student is far less likely to tune in and out and miss details. You'll also need to remove distractions, break assignments up into smaller 20-minute chunks, and take regular breaks between chunks to reset. The last skill in the executive function panel is processing speed, listed here as faster pace. This describes the speed with which a student can make sense of or work their way through new information. Sometimes processing speed can be too fast, which looks like impulsivity or quote-unquote careless errors, or a failure to take all of the information into account before grabbing at an answer. These students need to find ways to slow down, to be more methodical, and to follow a process. When processing speed is too slow, students may be capable and powerful thinkers. It just takes them longer to get there. These students need to know that fast is not the same thing as smart. They usually need more time to show what they're capable of and often have difficulty estimating the amount of time things like homework might take. Strategies often include front-loading information with memory, allowing more time for assignments, and building automatic habits. For more specific strategies, go to the second page of the student learner profile. Mindprint has assembled a giant library of practical, evidence-based strategies that students can use to help them achieve their academic goals. Understanding how each of the cognitive skills work is helpful to identify why a student may be stuck or struggling with a particular assignment or in a particular course. The strategies, however, don't require any special knowledge and can be used immediately. Make sure to click through and familiarize yourself with the strategies. You can then refer to them when you're talking through a profile. These are the things that you might want to share with parents so they can make sure their students remember to use them during homework. As a tutor or teacher, you are in charge. Folks are expecting you to tell them what to do. The strategies represent a curated list of the things you want your student to do in each situation. Use the student learner profile to identify a student's core strengths and then teach the student how to rely on those strengths whenever and wherever possible. Next, identify the potential blockers, and then use the resulting strategies, which are designed to support the student's weaker skills. We've done all the work of identifying the student's skill set for you and have pulled out and highlighted the key strategies for each student. The strategies are practical and accessible, and students can start using them today to make a difference. Now, how's your working memory? Do you remember everything I just covered? Don't worry if you don't. Page 3 of the student learner profile has all the definition of the skills and reminds you which of the subjects or activities depend on the skill the most. Remember always that we are here to help. Reach out early and often anytime you have questions.